I'm Anna Marie Cunningham, and I was 98 on the 16th of November. I've seen Novinger at its best and at its worst.
So what do you remember about when you were a little girl? What was the town like?
Oh, this was a great town years ago. There was stores all up and down this street, and there was where that little church is across the street now, there was an old hotel at the front, and ladies ready to wear, and there was a furniture store and a millinery store and a bank and a little candy kitchen. And there was a great big picture show, and my uncle ran the pictures. They had picture shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays afternoon, Saturday night, and Sunday night. And the place was full every time. It was really flourishing there for a while because it was a great little town. That was when Novinger was in good shape. And then the mines folded and they began to go downhill. There was no jobs, when the mines folded. That really ruined Novinger. Because one time my dad said there was 3,000 miners working here in these coal mines. It's hard to believe. Dad came to get a job in the mines. He started when he was about 12 years old, working in the mines. The cage fell with my dad one time, and he had his dinner bucket, and it mashed the dinner bucket, fell into the cage, mashed the dinner bucket, and it hurt him pretty bad, too. The women kept the beds made up all the time because so many men got hurt, They didn't know when they'd bring them home hurt. Morning, you'd see miners going in every direction to work. Their lights, on their pit caps flickering in the dark. And it was a hard life. They take a lot out of you, the coal mines.
Oh yeah, Overstall was a town, and a brother of my grandfather, he had a livery stable. And then Bob's dad, they had a store. There was a hotel, and there was a post office. We still had a post office till 52, I think.
Yeah, now you drive by and there's just a little sign that says stall, that's all it's there.
Yeah, the church is up there, but we don't have church there. There's still several people live there. They all commute somewhere else to work.
People that live around here mostly, if they either farm or they work in Kirksville, right?
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. Everything's closing up like everywhere else, though.
My husband, Kenneth, drove the DX truck, tank truck for Biot and Gasberry for 30 years. And he had gone out to take gas to this house right at the bottom of the hill. And he always got home right at noon, and I knew that something was wrong when he was late. Charlie sent out a wrecker, and he found him there at the bottom of the hill. He couldn't make the hill, and he couldn't cross the bridge. It wasn't strong enough to hold that truck. And he finally got in, and he said, boy, he had quite a day. It was really something. Well, when I was a little girl, we lived out what you call Penroyal Hill, out here west of town. And my grandfather brought me to school every morning in the horse and buggy. That picked me up at night. And I rode in the horse and buggy to school and back home. And we had an old brick building that was our school. Every time it would storm or the wind would blow real hard, they'd send us home because they was afraid the building was going to collapse. So, and then in later years, why, they built a new building right there. They didn't have enough money to really finish that school building with, so a whole bunch of us mothers went in there and we painted and we did everything we could to get the building finished up, and we finally got it done too. I used to play the piano for the silent movies up there for 3 or 4 years. I always tell them that's where I got all my money, because I got $1.25 a night playing piano.
I thought at first I didn't want to go in it because I thought it would be really unsafe, and you worry about that crashing a little more from the stuff that was on the second floor. But you know, when you walk in there, it's just so strong. Nothing has moved in the months since, even with winds and hard rain and stuff. And you can go down the stairs to the basement, and you can't tell there was ever a storm down there.
I just lost Michael on Mother's Day. 4 hours after his funeral, the tornado hit. When we heard the siren, my grandson said, Grandma, we got to go to the cellar. And of course I wasn't in very good shape since having just buried my son. And so he told me again, Grandma, we got to go to the cellar. And so my daughter and son-in-law was here then, and we all went to the cellar. And we just couldn't believe what had happened when we came out, you know. It had done so much damage. This building up here all fell, the bricks all fell. It was quite a time.
I was the co-founder of Novinger Renewal, and it kind of developed into something a little different than what our original plan was. We were able to bring some tourism in and promote our history because of holding events that brought people to town. The museum grew and opened up on a more regular basis. More collections were made. The log house was restored, and then we started on the Ross building and other things around town. But we also did a lot of activities that promoted the history of Novinger and tried to involve the students somewhat. So it's been a 20-some year process. I guess renewal really started in 1986. We had a meeting where we just advertised that we were wanting to find people that would be interested, and at our first meeting there were 4 people, and it grew from that. We started the newsletter about 22 years ago, I believe, and with that we've really grown. We have a mailing list of over 2,000 people nationwide that are interested in receiving that. So we collect stories from people that have lived here or have some connection to Novinger, and then we also write about current events and about different things throughout history, the history of the community. And it's really something now that people really are interested in.
When we had the restaurant up there in the old Opera House, he fixed the fountain so he could draw beer through the fountain. And those Italian men would come in on Saturday morning, and they would sit there and drink that beer and talk and visit and just laugh. They were just all gentlemen. They never said or did a thing out of the way. They just had a good time. And they'd sit there and drain that 8-gallon keg and get up and walk out as straight as a string. Bye, Aid, we'll be back next Saturday. And they did too. They were just wonderful men. They just all were just, you never said or did a thing out of the way. And they just came to visit that Saturday, you know, every Saturday. That was their day. Yeah, they would bite a bunch. Some nights a house would burn, and so they got to burning houses for the insurance, you know, so they could get out of town. They were desperate. They didn't have any money and didn't have any job. And we'd go to bed and wonder what house was going to burn tonight. And always be some house burned down. And they'd get the money for insurance and leave town. They didn't have any other way to do it. People were pretty poor, too. They had no income, and we were lucky that we had a big garden and we had a cow, and Mama had some chickens. We never did go hungry, but you know, there was hard times for a lot of them. They had big families and all. They just had to do what they had to do to survive.
Novinger Renewal was basically established for historic preservation and community betterment, and we've done a lot of projects such as like the sidewalks downtown, you know, trash cans, flowers. We did like Christmas decorating contests and things like that to just try to overall make it a better place in which to live. And I think we'll continue with those kinds of efforts. I'm not sure that we can do any real economic development. You know, if we could keep a beauty shop in town, gas in town, convenience store, a school. At this point, our school is our, you know, main center of our community, and I'm afraid if we ever lost the school in town, that it would really make us go downhill fast. If we can keep the post office here, you know, we're always looking for small businesses that could be established here, but they're almost going to have to be some type of a service business, especially with the economy the way it is now, in order to really be able to afford to stay open.
I was out in the yard one day and I heard this motor, this really loud motor. And I looked up and it was a Graf Zeppelin. I saw it, it went over and floated all the way. I got such a kick out of that. Boy, it looked huge to me, you know, a great big thing going over. It was pretty low too. I gave up my car about 10 years ago. I don't know, I went to Kirksville and I was so nervous over there. There was so much traffic and I thought, I don't know, I think it's about time for me to quit. When I got home, I said, thank God I'm home now. I called Michael and I said, Michael, you come and get this Toyota. I'm done driving. Oh, Joyce was real upset with me. She says, Mom, you're a good driver. You've never had an accident in your life. Why do you want to quit? I said, well, I quit while I'm ahead. I don't mind if I hurt myself, but I don't want to hurt anybody else. When I get to be 100, I don't imagine I'll make it. Yeah, I'm still here. I guess I'll be here till they haul me out. You have a lot of years by yourself, and it gets pretty lonely sometimes. But I'm blessed with a good family and a lot of good friends, and so I thank the Lord that I have. And don't know what I'd do without them. So many people moved out that we didn't, wasn't anything here for them to work at. When the mines quit, it sure went downhill in a hurry. It was just quite a town at one time.
Don't believe a thing you hear, nor half of what you see. That's what Mother said to me when I was a kid of 3. Now I know that she was right in every way. In the papers every day, here's what the headlines say. Chorus girls are darn good cooks, that's a lot of funk. And politicians are not crooks, that's a lot of bunk. 2 girls took 2 boys in their car, and when they got out pretty far, the boy said, "Stop or we'll tell Ma." That's a lot of bunk. Father gets a hammer, there's a fly on baby's head. Taxi drivers never cheat, that's a fabrication. And cops are always on their feet, and that's a lot of hokum. I took a showgirl out with me, you dined at Cafe de Paris. She said, "I'll just take cake and tea." That's a lot of bunk. She knocked my apartment, and so I knocked her flat. Waiters never take a tip. That's a lot of B-U-N-K. Car conductors never chip. That's a lot of B-U-N-K. Only just the other day, I phoned 2,000 miles and say, I got my number right away. That's a lot of bunk.